Good afternoon and welcome to the marketplace. Coming up in this bulletin, the Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama describes current pressures on Cedi as a short-term blip, but assures things will normalize soon.
The notices we have brought out at times, they actually meant, to take care of those leakages. So going forward, we are optimistic that trading in the interbank market will improve. Thereby the delays when it comes to importers financing their imports, etc., will be addressed. So
in this bulletin, more banks now depend on artificial intelligence to enhance both consumer service and back office operations, according to new PricewaterhouseCoopers Ghana survey. Also, President John Mahama announced his plans by government to lay revised GIPC bill and framework for establishing the 24-hour economy authority before Parliament soon.
In effect to this vision, I've directed the Attorney General and the Minister of Finance to lay before Parliament two landmark bills: the revised GIPC bill and the legal framework establishing the 24-hour economy authority.
My name is Winston Taki, and this is the marketplace. Coming up in this bulletin this afternoon, now we go to our first business story. Starting with the policy, President John Mahama has revealed that government has made significant progress in establishing the framework to aid the effective public-private partnership with foreign investors. To this end, the president says he has instructed for the revised GIPC Act and 24-hour Economy Authority Bill to be laid before Parliament soon. President John Mahama said during an engagement with investors in Singapore.
Pursuing a reform path with predictability, we're strengthening macro stability and fiscal discipline, we're modernizing our revenue systems and applying clear rules-based frameworks for public-private partnerships and private capital. We've amended our public procurement law and streamlined approvals under the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act to provide fast and transparent pathways for investment. Under my leadership, Ghana will be a trusted, open, and reliable investment partner. To give effect to this vision, I've directed the Attorney General and the Minister of Finance to lay before Parliament two landmark bills: the revised GIPC bill and the legal framework establishing the 24-hour economy authority. In the revised act, we have included the most favored nation status, and I'm sure Singapore will qualify for MFN. Most favored nation treatment, fair and equitable treatment, and investment facilitation to make Ghana one of the most business-friendly destinations on the continent. These reforms are not just legal instruments, they are a statement of our commitment to building a dynamic, inclusive, and globally competitive economy. Ghana is a pro-enterprise state under my administration, and we're simplifying permits, we're digitizing our customs, we're de-risking bankable projects through viability gap funding, government support, and mega-backed guarantees, while ensuring the repatriation of profits and foreign exchange convertibility. Ghana boasts a young and skilled workforce. Our investment in TVET, STEM, and digital skills are tailored to industry's needs, from advanced manufacturing and agri-tech to power systems and data centers. Automotive and e-mobile assembly. Sorry, just a minute. Our proposition to you today is clear. Ghana offers market access, a stable and reform-oriented environment, and a pipeline of bankable projects in manufacturing, agribusiness, and infrastructure, ready for investment with defined risk mitigation and credible partners. So what are the priority sectors and the bankable opportunities? The first is under manufacturing and industrial platforms. We have the Greater Accra Industrial Platform expansion, utilities and last-mile infrastructure to scale export-focused industrial parks at Tema and the Dawa industrial area.
In another development, the Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama has described the current pressures on the city as a short-term blip caused by some cash flow issues. But he was, however, quick to add that things should normalize soon by some drastic measures implemented. Dr. Isiama has been speaking in an interview with Joy Business.
Through that entire phenomenon, we kept saying it, that there wasn't a specific exchange rate that we were targeting. Remember, the exchange rate, as we always say, is an endogenous, variable. It must move. It can move by the minute, it can move by the second, it can move by the day. And that is the framework we have, what we call a flexible, a managed floating system. That is what we maintain. Now, when a currency appreciates sharply, it brings on board other phenomena. And we are beginning to see some of those phenomena at play. For example, immediately imports become a lot cheaper. And so you find that people who wouldn't have been settling their import bills that early, they find it cheaper to do so. And so it's just natural to begin to see pressure build up on the currency just because of the sharp appreciation that occurred. So for us, what you see out there as pressure is just a cash flow. The macroeconomic fundamentals are very strong. As at the end of June, you saw all the numbers. Growth is strong. The external sector is very much viable. The current account is very strong. You've seen the surplus. You've seen the trade account. The balance of payment is as strong, strongest than ever before. And so in terms of the macroeconomics, nothing has changed. Things are actually looking good. Inflation is on the downward decline, as you know. And so ideally, there shouldn't be pressure on the local currency. Rather, what is happening is just because of the sharp appreciation, we were beginning to have some, some cash flow problems. Now, why specifically? Again, because we've seen some decline in terms of remittance inflows. That also I can explain the phenomenon at play. We've had some IMTOs and other remittance companies beginning to pull a fast one, beginning to use other channels. Over the last 2 months, for example, we have seen very limited interbank trading. And so you find that unless the central bank is there, supporting the market, then you would see pressure building up. So when you talk about market demand, it doesn't have to be the central bank alone. Remember, the banks ought to have their own inflows that accrue through remittances, inflows that accrue through trade. It is true that certain inflows, like from mining, for example, those accrue to us. And so it makes sense that we support the market using, those inflows that come in. And so one of the things we have done this week is we have written to the mining firms, right, for such inflows to be redirected to the commercial banks. And all these is meant to help, improve interbank trading, in forex. That way they are able to support imports and other flows without necessarily, waiting for the central bank to come in with some support.
To break this down further, let's cross over to Zoom and speak with the CEO of the Association of Ghana Industry, Cedi Performance. Welcome to the marketplace. What do you make of the assurance coming from the governor of the Bank of Ghana, and whether it gives you some comfort?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's a good assurance because we've all been witnessing the stability we've had and the cedi appreciation in the last few months. And we welcome it. We think that every effort should be made to sustain it. And therefore, the recent blip that we experienced gave cause to worry. And therefore, the assurance from the governor is good. A bit of normally the depreciation we experience in the economy or in the city has to do with speculation. And when people are not sure of the market arrangements and not sure of the conditions then they tend to speculate. And the speculation then leads to all kinds of hoarding of currency. People who don't even need the currency then would like to store it. Then it fuels the situation and makes it even worse. And therefore, talking positive to the market is very important. And I think that's exactly what the governor has done, that indeed there's a full assurance that the stability we've experienced will be sustained. And I think that is good. And government and the governor should make every effort to make sure that it's sustained. So I like the assurance, and I think it's welcoming.
Great. Let me also get your thoughts on the recent directives and new guidelines on forex and the restrictions by the Bank of Ghana. Is this something that you're welcoming as an association?
Sure, we do. We do welcome it because, you see, when the cedi started appreciating and we had the stability in the economy, we all hailed it, and we think that is the right way. Of course, we've had the flip side of it. A few sectors have been affected as a result of the cedi appreciation. But all in all, I think it's a positive development. And therefore, if it is positive for the economy, then we must make every effort to sustain it. And one way to sustain it is to ensure that the regulations governing the use of foreign currency is well managed and is enforced. The recent announcement by the governor of the thresholds is not different from what we had previously. The threshold hasn't changed. It was 10,000, above 10,000 declaration, and it is so today. It's just a bit of the enforcement of it that he's trumpeting. So there has not been any change, and therefore welcome the development that people should comply, and it helps. See, when you have too much informality in your operations, it affects your own management capacity. It affects a lot of things in the system. So we should reduce the informality. People should do business, transact business in the formal sector. If you are sending money out, as much as what we use the banking system. If you are going above the threshold, declare it. So these are basic principles in business that we should adhere to. So we welcome the idea, and I hope that people would comply. And then we have sanity in the system to ensure that our currency stability is sustained.
Will this measure in any way impact your businesses badly?
I don't think so. I think those who are doing real genuine business and are doing big ticket transactions, ideally, why would you even carry so much currency on you or the risk that is associated with it? You wouldn't like to do that. You like to do the business through the banking system, transact the business through the banking system. If you are sending money, do so. If you are receiving money, do so. So I don't think it should affect businesses as much. And in any case, they are not preventing you from sending money out. They are only saying that if you are going beyond a certain threshold, then declare it at the port of entry. And if you fill the right forms and you really need the cash on you, then declare it. When it's declared, you can still take the money. So I don't see how this should affect businesses, unless you are so informal in your operation and you think that if you, by declaring, you are creating problems for yourself. That's where you have a problem. But all things being equal, if you are doing business and you are doing formal business, I don't think this directive should affect you. In any case, as I said earlier, this is not something new. It's a law and a regulation that already exists. I think it's just an effort to enforce it. And enforcement laws is important. If you didn't need to enforce it, then why did you have it in the first place? So if you're enforcing it, I think it's all right. Thank you.
Okay, I want to get from you as well. When you read the directive, it tells you that pricing in Ghana cedis is something that the directive highlighted. How committed are all your members to that effect?
Well, this is also not new. It's something that we talk about all the time. And Bank of Ghana always emphasize the need to stop the dollarization of the country. It means that you must be pricing your goods in cedis. The challenge we've had in the past is the instability in the cedi. Because if you are doing a contracting job, for example, and you price it in cedis, and your cedi depreciates, you have a challenge being able to play your suppliers and your input dealers. So the reason why people normally quote the dollar as the basis for pricing, especially when it comes to contract figures, is because of the instability in the currency. And therefore, with the effort being made and what we have experienced so far, if we're able to sustain it, Why would anybody like to price in US dollars or any other currency? You price in cedis because you know that within a certain reasonable period, the cedi will be stable. Today, if you go to most of the hotels, most of them are pricing in cedis because the cedi has gained some weight. So I think that a lot of effort has to be made at the Ghana macroeconomic environment. If we do so and we sustain it, the pricing will automatically come in cedi. There will be no gain pricing in dollars. So again, it's a good call, but the flip side of it is that let's continue the effort in sustaining the stability we've had, in sustaining the appreciation, not necessarily appreciation, but at least stabilizing the cedi. And the other currency relationships. If it's stable, people will price in cedis, and that wouldn't be a problem at all.
Well, thank you very much for your time here on the marketplace. Chuma Kwabwa is the CEO of the Association of Ghana Industry, speaking to us here. Now, elsewhere in the market, more banks in Ghana are now dependent on artificial intelligence to enhance customer experience and back office operations. That's according to the 2025 Ghana Banking Survey released by accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers Ghana. In a related development, EcoBank emerged as the biggest bank in Ghana with the highest industry deposit for last year. The report showed that EcoBank had more than 14% of industry deposit in 2024. It was followed by GCB with 13%. Meanwhile, EcoBank, GCB, Stanbic, and Standard Chartered Bank maintained their Tier 1 status with strong market presence for last year. Let's get more perspective now from my colleague George Grafe, who joins me in studio with more insight from that report. Now, George, help us appreciate the banking survey report released by PwC.
So you talked about PwC Ghana, and they do this survey with banking chiefs for a particular year, and the fresh one that has come out has shown that they want to look at how these banks were giving some attention to artificial intelligence. And if you go through the report, let's share this thing with our viewers. So you see that there's a surge in generative artificial intelligence in doing their products and doing services as well. Now, 7 out of 10 CEOs that they engaged, they told them that they've actually adopted artificial intelligence over the past 12 months to do their work. Also, they're talking about the fact that it has helped improve their customer service and backroom operations, and that is very critical for them. Again, if you go through the report, you realize that 20% increase in customer satisfaction because they have depended heavily on AI to do their work. There's also been 15% reduction in fraud as well. And also look at the fact that some stringent protocols, when you go through the numbers as well, protection of sensitive data and protection of some critical documents that we have as commercial banks. 89% of the banks were saying that going forward, they will fully adopt AI to do their work. It means that they are getting the results. Now, for instance, if you try to reach a bank, those box, those internet messages and all the rest, some are not being done by human beings. These AI chat toolbox are the ones that are helping them. And so that is what you get when you go through the report in terms of how AI has helped these commercial banks.
What is driving this sudden interest in AI?
Well, it appears that it's getting the result for them. And that is why they want to go that way, based on several reports by what is happening to other commercial banks in other countries. And if you look at the report, it is getting the result for them. And that is why there is this sudden surge in them moving this way because of the results.
Which other aspects of the economy or the banking sector did the report highlight?
You look at this traditional or the PricewaterhouseCoopers PwC Ghana report, and it's about who is the biggest bank in this country. Now, if you go through the report again, it's clear that total industry deposits actually went up by some 32.2% to 226.7 billion Ghana cedis. Now, EcoBank, emerged as the biggest bank in Ghana in terms of deposits. Now, if you put the total deposits in the industry for last year, they commanded more than 14%. Again, GCB, biggest bank in Ghana, in terms of loan advances. Even though over the past, if you go to the report, it was so that over the past years, EcoBank had this top rank. But it appears that just for last year, GCB has overtaken them. So you look at the numbers here, they had about 15.4%. EcoBank had 14%. So you've seen that they've actually edged or overtaken them slightly when you look at all these things. EcoBank was also the biggest bank in Ghana in terms of total assets.
That's
you put all those things together, GT Bank might have posted the highest profit margin, and also Cal Bank in terms of return on equity they were doing this as well. So these were the numbers of data when you go through the latest PwC Ghana analysis on the banking sector and the fact that more of these banks are focusing on AI.
That's interesting because initially there were conversations that will AI take away the labor in most aspects of service delivery. But as you can see, more CEOs are drawn towards that attention.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, George, for this insightful report and analysis here on the marketplace. Speaking to George Biafe here in studio. Now, talking about labor, government statistician recommends skills enhancement. That is, government statistician says that unemployment is a key challenge in Ghana, and therefore this report highlights the key concern in the sector.
Decline we've seen signals progress, but reveals persistent distress. In 2024, youth unemployment remains alarmingly high at 22.5% for ages 15 to 35 and 32% for ages 15 to 24. This evidence highlights the urgency of expanded and more focused labor market practices and policies, such as retraining and skilling programs to combat skills mismatch and boost employability, aligning with objectives of the Ghana's National Employment Policy Review. We are proposing that there's a scale-up of apprenticeships, graduate employment schemes, and also job placement services. There would also be the need for government to reform and expand the TVET to match training with demand, especially in digital, industrial, and green economy sectors. We recommend also that government should provide affordable credit to small businesses to boost job creation, especially for women and youth.
And still on the economy, speakers at the Fidelity Bank Sustainability Conference have called for increased awareness in funding opportunities for small businesses in Ghana's green economy. Speaking to Joy Business, Managing Director for Fidelity Bank Ghana, Juliana Opuni, stated that building effective partnerships with ecosystem players will improve the rate of access to green finance and support the growth of a green economy. Here is more from this report.
The third edition of the Fidelity Bank Sustainability Conference aims to reaffirm the bank's commitment to fostering a climate-resilient economy. The conference gathered experts from across varied sectors to explore how Ghana can advance its climate finance agenda through innovations. Speaking to Joy Business at the event, Managing Director for the bank, Julian Oponi, underscored the need for strategic partnerships between financial institutions and business development groups to enable SMEs tap into funding for green projects.
What we find is that in addition to access to finance, is capacity building for SMEs, which is sometimes what stops them from being effectively de-risked. Additionally, in this space, a lot of the areas are probably haven't been tapped into properly, and there's no ongoing or existent proven track record of success and banks' understanding of those areas. So that's why we believe in working in partnerships. The banks, and from where we sit as Fidelity, we know how we can assess a business, the profitability, etc. But in some of these areas, it's important that we work with other partners who understand the ecosystem a lot better.
Mr. Opuni was optimistic that Fidelity Bank will lead the charge in sustainable banking in the short to medium term, offering competitive products and ensuring green-led practices.
We are, intrinsically a domestic bank, and we like to be at the forefront of things that matters to the ecosystem in which we operate. And so we don't want to be outside of this conversation. So in 5-10 years, I'd want it to be almost Fidelity's mentioned when we talk about sustainable bank, and we become, not just for the regulator, but for all Ghanaians, almost like a yardstick to measure how well it can be done.
A panelist at the conference and head of risk and regulations at the National Banking College, Dr. Francis Mensah Sasraku, stated that Ghana Banking College's resolve to deepen education on the sector.
We also work in terms of collaboration, where you see clearly that the challenge of bankers ensures that sustainability training is one of the key pillars for you to become a chartered banker. in the area of marketing, which we realize as a very critical point in allocating the funds, which is one of the key pillars in terms of strategy.
Addressing the role of banks in ensuring a sustainable economy, the Bank of Ghana outlined measures to improve compliance of financial institutions in that regard. Ismail Adam, Director of Banking Supervision at the Bank of Ghana, revealed that banks in Ghana have achieved a 73% average compliance of the sustainable banking principles as of first quarter 2025.
I'm happy to say that compliance with these principles has been on upward trajectory, and as at March 2025, the average compliance rate was about 73%. In the year 2024, a 4-year strategic plan on sustainability and climate-related risk was also developed and published.
That's all for today's edition of The Marketplace. My name is Winston Taki. For more news, visit myjoyonline.com, where you see Samlam Alliance Partners Multimedia Group to promote financial confidence, and this and other insightful stories coming up on the myjoyonline.com. Thanks for watching today's edition of The Marketplace. Have a good business day. Bye-bye.